This guy is the gaslighting master. If anyone out there doesn't know what gaslighting is, watch episode 1 of Lies Hidden in My Garden and you'll get a textbook definition. This husband is the textbook definition. Hey K-drama fam, it's your girl Blake, your go-to for all things Korean drama. So whether you're new or returning to the channel, here is where we talk about our favourite dramas and get hyped for upcoming releases. So hit the subscribe button and let's get into our next binge watch. Today, I want to dive into the new drama, Lies Hidden in My Garden, or as the literal translation goes, Lies Hidden in My Backyard. And this is an adaptation of a novel, and I believe that the series will have 10 episodes. And if the first episode is anything to go by, I think it's going to be great. So let's just unpack what I've watched. Sit back, grab your drink, and let's uncover what's lurking in the garden. So the first episode opens with an ethereal, surreal setting in an enchanted forest, and the protagonist, Moon-Muran, is walking barefooted. It's giving Snow White, and someone is watching from behind a tree, and it's a mysterious man wearing, I think it's like a white fox mask. And then the dream transitions as dreams do, and then she's inside the house, she's walking up the stairs, and then she opens a door. No, she doesn't open the door. She hears a knocking from the other side of the door. And then when it opens, she sees a more cheerful version of herself dragging a suitcase. And then she opens up an apartment. And as she opens the door, she's like, ooh, what's that smell? And then all of the pearls and jewelry in the box drops on the floor. And I'm assuming she found a body. And this is great foreshadowing for what's coming next. Then we roll into her daily routine of her pristine and modern house. And I hope it's not just me, but does this house seem reminiscent of the one in Parasite? Because it looks like I've seen it before. Is it the same set? Let me know in the comments. So anyway, she's lying on the sofa and the classical music's playing. Her doorbell's ringing persistently, but she's making no attempts to get up to answer it. So I'm curious, why doesn't she want to answer the door? But then we notice it's her neighbours, and apparently she hasn't been attending the neighbourhood meetings for the past 3 months since she's moved into the new property. And whilst they're about to leave, one of the neighbours comments about, ooh, what's that smell coming from the garden? So I'm curious too. Is it going to be that literal, there's a body buried in the garden? I guess we'll find out as the episode progresses. So anyway, another new neighbour happens to be moving in, and I think the neighbour gives mention of the fact that she's returning after 8 years or something. And Muran is like peeping out through the blinds, and she gets spotted and makes eye contact, unfortunately for her. So the neighbour, she energetically waves, hello, hello. But Muran's reaction is to retreat and run to the sink and try to swallow some pills. So it's giving mental instability, and I'm assuming it's related to the dream. But anyway, as she's attempted to take the pills, she throws up in the sink, and then she also notices a smell emanating from the garden as the patio doors open. So she waddles out. She doesn't waddle. She goes into the garden and she notices some like mysterious pots and lanterns, and I think the smell's emanating from there. I believe this leads her to call her husband, but he answers straight away actually, but then he says he'll call her back, and that's because he's in a meeting. The father is at school in a teachers' conference related to the son's recent behavioural change, and the teacher is inquiring as to any underlying problems at home that could explain Sungjae's troubled state. As over the past 3 days he's been acting strangely. He flunked his test, drawing a load of scribble on the test paper. He isn't talking or eating much, and basically is just lying on the desk during class. And then the teacher asks after the wife and is met with bombastic side eye. No, I'm just joking. But she is met with criminally offensive eye contact from the husband. And then we get a flashback and we see that the son told the teacher to specifically contact the dad and not his mom. The dad lets us know that they've recently moved and transferred schools, and it happened suddenly, and that his wife isn't in the best condition. The dad says that he'll talk to his son and attempts to leave, but the teacher isn't letting him off so easy. She informs him that his son has mentioned that he wishes to end things, to which the dad retorts, "Kids speak carelessly these days. What the f*** are they doing upstairs?" The teacher then mentions that she's heard that there was some case before he came to his current school concerning his mom. The dad gets defensive then.
사건이요? 무슨 범죄처럼 말씀하시네요.
The teacher naturally apologises for causing offence, and the dad takes this as his cue to leave. So through this conversation, it's evident that there's some deeper complexities going on with Muran's family dynamic. What was the previous incident concerning the mom? Why did Sunjae specifically request that she contact the father and not the mom? And at this point, I've got questions regarding their past, as it might have some impact on the present. In the car ride home, Sunjae tells his dad that he wants to move back to Seoul, which kind of hints that there's a hidden reason behind the sudden relocation. And the dad says, no, it's not going to happen, and he cites the wife's well-being. Okay, and then we get another glimpse of the past as we see the wife, Muran, appearing distressed, wielding a stick, and she actually clobbers someone on the head with it, who's also wearing a mask, as they're all wearing masks, including her son, Sunjae. And they happen to be wearing the mask that was in her dream. So maybe the dream is made up of fragmented memories. But anyway, something dark and mysterious is lurking on this one. So let's keep going. At this point, Muran can't bear the smell from the garden any longer, and she goes out there and she seems resolute that she's going to dig it up. And at that moment, her son and her husband turn up, and she questions them about the smell. And now this is the key moment. They both deny the existence of the stench in the garden.
무슨 악취 같은 거 안 나니?
안 나. 아무 냄새도.
Which obviously contradicts the neighbour's earlier statement and the wife's concerns regarding the smell. Now, if it were just the wife, the fact that she's taking medication and that there seems to be some incident, I would say that, oh, it's possible that she's like hallucinating, or actually, can you hallucinate smells? I could put it down to like her mental state not being stable, but the fact that the neighbours mentioned it, now the husband and the son are acting suspicious by denying the existence, makes me highly suspicious about what's in the garden. But over dinner, the husband tries to placate the wife and says that the smell is due to the natural fertiliser that she requested for the garden, and she seems not to remember making such a request, but also reluctant to say that she can't remember making the request, which seems to me like gaslighting. Isn't that the definition of gaslighting? Anyway, despite her hesitation, she confirms having asked for it, even though she has no recollection of making such a request. And then the doorbell rings, and the neighbour who made the eye contact through the blinds turns up to introduce herself. And at this moment, you can tell that the husband, he doesn't want any guests, because he makes a mention to the fact that it's late. And the neighbour apologises, but as she's about to leave, she also says, "What the F is this stench?" Well, she doesn't say it like that. She's like, "Ooh, it stinks." And at the mention of the smell, ding, 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 Muran's surprise is palpable.
무슨 냄새야?
The husband's response is to divert his wife's attention by getting her to come and sit down on the sofa and watch his own televised interview. And it's becoming evident that this husband has some narcissistic qualities, as the husband nonchalantly munches on an apple and talking about his appearance on the televised interview. His demeanour takes a chilling turn when he gets a call from a pharmacologist, and the change in tone seems to indicate, at least to me, that he's got this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde personality. And also the mention of night fishing raised suspicions for me, because I personally feel like they definitely aren't talking about regular fishing. Actually, it was quite fishy. Meanwhile, Muran's eyes are drawn to the garden and she reflects on the neighbour's recognition of the mysterious smell. Then there was a rather creepy scene for me when the husband's like eerily brushing his wife's hair. Now normally this is like a romantic gesture, but I don't know if it's the way it's filmed or anything, or the personality what is shown so far, but something about me I just found it extremely off-putting. And then he questions her if she's still worried about the smell and tries to downplay her concerns. This guy is the gaslighting master. If anyone out there doesn't know what gaslighting is, watch episode 1 of Lies Hidden in My Garden and you'll get a textbook definition. This husband is the textbook definition. And then he mentions about her also hearing a noise and if she's still hearing banging coming from upstairs. And when reference of that noise of the banging was made upstairs, I'm wondering, is this what coincides with the son's sudden change in behaviour? And the husband's mention of Murian being extremely sensitive at this time of year, along with her sister would have wanted her to be happy, and her happiness being the reason for the sudden move. Gaslighting, isn't it? Anyway, all of his gestures of affection have an underlying oppressive vibe to them, which left me a bit unsettled. Was I the only one who was unsettled by the husband, or did you find him unsettling too? Anyway, we learned that the sister died this time last year, and the flashback shows that her sister's death was not a S, but in fact a murder. So I'm curious, who murdered the sister? Anyway, Murian's clearly overwhelmed by the recollection of events and she throws up, and while she's in the bathroom, the husband's standing outside the door like a stalker, contemplating whether to enter, but whether he does or he doesn't, we don't see, as it moves to the next morning and Murian's cleaning their immaculate house and she discovers like a floral piece of jewellery amongst some pebbles under the stairs, but she misses a pink diamante. And then the camera alternates between her cleaning the house and the pots in the garden, which is obviously heightening the sense of mystery of what's going on in the garden. At this point, I think I couldn't even, well actually I'm low on patience, so I would have already dug that garden up. The moment I smelt it, I would have been digging. But anyway, Murian's intrigue into the smell is definitely increasing as she marches over to the new neighbour's house. But once she gets outside, she seems reluctant to actually ring the bell. But the neighbour is actually already outside and she calls her and eagerly introduces herself as Oh Hey Sue and stretches out her hand to like shake Murian's, but Murian's hand doesn't even move. In fact, she doesn't even answer, she just attempts to walk off, which prompts Hey Sue to ask her about the smell. Now, Murian tries to use her husband's explanation of the natural fertilizer, and Jesus is having none of it because obviously she hasn't been gaslit and manipulated for God knows how long and seems more sure of herself, so she dismisses it immediately. She's like, no, it smells like something's rotting in the garden and how can you even endure it? I wouldn't be able to suffer that for a minute.
집안에도 냄새 엄청 날 텐데. 괜찮아요? 난 잠깐도 못 참겠던데.
Now, after this exchange, Murian marches home, grabs the shovel and starts to dig up the garden. But then we change perspective. The perspective abruptly changes to Chu Sang-un, and also it takes us back to September 18th. Now, the family's eating dinner around the table and then they can hear a thumping noise coming from upstairs. And from the surroundings, it's evident that Chu Sang-un is not living the good life like Murian. It's a very stark contrast. And sadly, her home life is also in disarray because she seems to be suffering from domestic abuse. as hinted at by the security guard who's had to come up 5 flights of steps to check on her, and he points out that she needs to report it to the police and that next time he's going to do it. And Sang-un assures him that she's still alive, revealing the bleak reality that she's enduring. And the security guard promises to contact the police himself if it happens again, but she dismisses his concerns, stating that it won't happen again. And at this point I was thinking, why isn't it going to happen again? Has she already killed him? But then I thought, this is usually some of the wishful thinking on the victim's part. Or actually, is it wishful thinking, or it's just part of the cycle of abuse, isn't it? But anyway.
몰라. 당장 괜찮다고만 하니까. 야, 나 몰라. 갈게. 자네 너 그러면 못 써. 그러다 큰일 나, 참말로. 아, 진짜.
The heart-wrenching scene is made even more horrifying when we get the realization that Sang-un is in fact pregnant. This broke my heart, because how can you get, I don't even know what to say. You know, it's just so heartbreaking to feel that women are being beaten, but a pregnant woman, that's just, I'm speechless. Anyway, the abuser, who I'll refer to as the, actually I shouldn't swear on the channel. The abuser, who I want to refer to as the, but I'll refer to him as Yoon-bum. He emerges from the bathroom and tries to belittle the security guard, mentioning that the security guard's delusional. How is he delusional when everyone can hear you beating her? And then he orders Sang-un to clean up the mess that he's made, while subjecting her to degrading comments. And also, while Sang-un's cleaning up, she cuts herself on a piece of glass, and I noticed that there's a picture of a wedding, but she's alone in the photo, and that's highly unusual, isn't it? Why is she wearing a wedding dress in a solo shot? Usually it's always a couple shot, isn't it? Anyway, Yoon-bum's calling her clumsy, and he tosses a box at her like she's trash, and she asks him what it is, and he's like, is there any point even telling you wouldn't know it anyway, just wear it. I mean, it's ironic, isn't it? Why is he concerned about the size of her 5-month bum when he's beating her? The contrast between his concern for the baby's health due to her lack of eating and his disregard for the potential harm caused by his abuse highlights the twisted nature of this relationship. Sang-un gives in and tells him that she's craving strawberries, and then as Sang-un is leaving, I know that Yoon-bum is also watching the same televised interview featuring Muran's husband, and we learn that he is in fact the pharmacologist that called Muran's husband, and his smirk and the secretive nature of the telephone call hints at some connection between the two of them, and also he seems to have something over Muran's husband. And personally, the allusion to night fishing coupled with the tone of the conversation led me to believe that night fishing is a euphemism for some kind of illicit activities, and personally I feel that it's involving women. Anyway, I don't know if my intuition and exposure to crime related content has sharpened my senses to such subtleties, and I'm not sure if this is a good or bad thing, but anyway, I smell something amiss. Instead of purchasing the organic strawberries as instructed, she decides to buy herself some strawberry ice cream, so I'm assuming that's an act of defiance on her part. Or it could have just been the manageable option, because if your mouth's busted, ice cream's easier to consume than strawberries, isn't it? So Sang-un is sat eating ice cream outside, and while she's doing so, she attempts to bum a cigarette from some students and is met with more mockery. And then she returns home and seems reluctant to open the door. But once she enters, another horrifying beating takes place. But this time we're clued into the fact that there's an actual CCTV camera set up inside the house, the hidden camera, and I'm not sure if the hidden camera is set up by the husband or Sang-un. But being as he closes the door to the bedroom, it kind of indicates that Sang-un is the one who set up a hidden camera. In the middle of the night, Sang-un finds solace eating ice cream, and while she's in the bathroom, she's got on the scarf that the husband bought her. And if I'm not mistaken, this looks exactly the same as the scarf that Muran owns. Anyway, while she's in the bathroom, she takes pictures of her bruises and sends them to someone, seeking confirmation whether or not they can be used as evidence. So it looks like she's attempting to leave him, hence the camera. The next day at work, she's talking to her friend and she asks her if she'll be willing to attend the meeting with the lawyer that she's recommended. So at least, thank goodness, she's trying to get out of this relationship. Sang-eun leaves work early, claiming that she's going to visit her mom. And we also discover that she's wearing a girdle at work to conceal the pregnancy. And I think it's because she's a temporary worker. Once she leaves work, Yoonbom's waiting in the car for her and he immediately starts to berate her. But she's also secretly recording this conversation too. Anyway, in the glove compartment, a bedazzled phone falls out. And this phone seems similar to the flowered piece of jewellery that Muran found when she was cleaning the house. And the speed at which Yoonbom tries to conceal the phone suggests that it's of significance. Anyway, during the confrontation in the car, Yoonbom slams on the brakes and Sang-eun reaches for the handle, only to have Yoonbom callously pointing out that usually pregnant women protect the baby.
야씨! 야, 보통 여자들은 그 배부터 먼저 감싸지 않냐? 넌 어떻게 된 게 손잡이를 덥석 잡냐? 하긴 나 몰래 애 주우려고 한 너 같은 게 뭐 엄마라고.
그러게. 나 같은.
또 말대꾸하지, 어?
Which is pretty absurd given the fact that she's experiencing ongoing physical abuse. But he also makes mention of Sang-eun attempting to get an abortion. And can we blame her given the brutality that she's facing? But I'm not sure if it's the abortion that's also... I don't want to actually blame the victim. It sounds like victim blaming, but I'm curious, in his warped mind, is this giving him just cause to lay hands on Sang-eun? Anyway, it's seeming increasingly clear that Yoonbom has zero concerns for Sang-eun's well-being or the well-being of the unborn baby. And whilst looking at the GPS, Sang-eun realises that they're not in fact heading towards their mum's house, and it looks like they're going to somewhere named Cornelia. And Yoonbom ominously laughs and makes mention of how much money do you think would be in the bag. So I'm curious, is he blackmailing Murian's husband? And if he is, why is he? Is it connected to the bedazzled phone and the smell in the garden? Anyway, the scene transitions to a foggy night and it's now the 20th of September. Sang-eun arrives at another residence and I'm assuming it's her mother's. She's drenched from the rain and takes a shower, revealing a huge bruise on her back. And then she climbs into bed with her mother, who's pretending to be asleep. Anyway, upon awakening, Sang-eun briefly is in the house alone, but then her mum returns with someone who appears to be a caretaker, who makes mention of the mum's dementia or some other undisclosed reason why the mum has a caretaker. But the mum calls Sang-eun an ingrate and tells her to leave and go back to her own house. And then, while Sang-eun's waiting for the lift, the caretaker makes mention of her brother. So I'm not sure if she's just the caretaker or if she's the brother's wife, so her sister-in-law. She makes mention of Yoonbom buying her a pretty scarf and that she's jealous. And Sang-eun attempts to give her the scarf, but she rejects it. And she says, next time, bring your husband, I'll make his favourite dumplings. And Sang-eun mentions that Yoonbom doesn't like dumplings. And then her phone rings and she gets a call instructing her that she needs to go somewhere ASAP. And then she chillingly tells her mom that her husband's dead. Meanwhile, Murian unearths 2 decomposing fingers in the back garden. And there it is, the end of the gripping first episode of Lies Hidden in My Garden. So, Moon Muran's seemingly picture perfect life takes a sinister turn as her husband's dark secrets are emerging. And alongside her story, Sang-eun's harrowing cycle of abuse unfolds, exposing the depth of the poor girl's torment. And the connection between Moonyan's husband and Sang-eun's disgusting husband, Yunbam, becomes apparent, hinting at a web of deception. And lots of questions like, who is the owner of the decomposing fingers? They look like a man's hand, but given the dates, I don't think they're Yunbam's fingers unless they're playing with the timeline and Sang-eun's story is set like a year later or a year before. That could be a possibility. And then if they have played with the timeline, then the fingers could belong to Sang-eun's husband. So we would have to see in episode 2. Anyway, I'm curious, what's the connection between Murian's husband and Yunbam? What secrets do the characters' past hold and how do they intertwine? Anyway, the stage has been set for some further revelations and I, for one, am looking forward to episode 2. But before we go, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and notification bell so that you can stay updated on all our latest videos. And let me know in the comments, what did you think of Lies Hidden in My Garden? And if you know any K-drama fans, sharing is caring. And until then, ciao, annyeong.